Department of Forensic Science, correct?
That's correct.
As the director, it was your responsibility on the morning of September 25th to administer the breathalyzer test on Danny Dawson, correct?
Yes, I was the one that performed the test on the Intoxilizer 8000.
Now, Doctor, at the time of the test, the defendant didn't seem to be confused, correct?
Confused? No. He was speaking extremely loudly, though, which made conversation a little difficult.
The defendant didn't seem to be dizzy.
No, as I said before, though, he was speaking very loudly, so it was a little odd.
You would agree that these symptoms are consistent with someone who has a BAC level of 0.19 or higher, correct?
Yes.
Doctor, you were surprised with the outcome of the test, isn't that right?
I was a little surprised initially. I thought it would be a little lower, although I'm not the Intoxilizer 8000. Luckily, it does all the scientific work for me.
You were surprised because based on your experience, when you observed the defendant, you assumed that his her BAC level would be around 0.08, isn't that right?
I thought it would be lower.
Now, Doctor, there are several reasons why someone would test a higher BAC level than their actual BAC level, isn't that right?
That's true. On a machine, there are obvious sources of error that could come into play.
For example, certain medical conditions can result in a higher BAC reading.
That's correct.
But you never had the defendant examined by a physician, did you?
No, that's not procedure here in Midlands. When an officer brings somebody in to get tested, we test them right away. If we believe that a medical condition did apply, we would test them later.
You never reviewed the defendant's medical records?
No, it's not my job as an operator of the machine.
So then, Doctor, you don't know whether the defendant has any of these medical conditions, do you?
What medical conditions are you
Medical
talking
conditions that could result in a higher BAC reading.
about? Which ones?
For example, hypoglycemia. You don't know whether the defendant has any of these because you didn't have the defendant examined and you didn't review the defendant's medical records.
That's true. Hypoglycemia can cause higher readings, but only minimally. And so we perform the test first.
So aside from certain medical conditions, there are other reasons why someone could test a higher BAC level. Isn't that right?
Of course.
For example, belching could result in a higher BAC level.
Yes. As I said before, belching, burping, vomiting, there's a few different things that could register higher readings. But usually the machine will tell us that. It'll cause a spike and then go back down. And so we'll know if there is any residual mouth alcohol.
Vomiting could result in a higher BAC reading.
Yes, it'll spike the machine as well.
Doctor, something as simple as mouthwash could result in a higher BAC reading.
That's correct. Officer Foster, though, said that Danny Dawson did not have access to breath mints or mouthwash.
And you would agree that it is because of all of these things, you're required to observe subjects for at least 15 minutes prior to administering the breathalyzer test. Isn't that right?
Yes, so alcohol has time to dissipate.
But doctor, you didn't personally observe Danny Dawson for 15 minutes, did you?
No, I only observed Danny Dawson for 5 minutes, but Officer Foster and I have a long-standing professional relationship. He watched Danny Dawson for the 20 minutes prior.
So doctor, you base that conclusion solely on what the police officer told you. Isn't that right?
Yes. Officer Foster has been in the force for 10 years. I trust his opinions.
Doctor, you never verified his statements, did you?
I mean, that is what Officer Foster told me, that he had watched Danny for 20 minutes, and I watched him for an additional 5.
But you didn't verify the doctor's statements, to be clear.
My own statements?
You didn't, excuse me, you didn't verify the police officer's statements.
I did not verify them, as in made sure that I had gone back and actually made sure that in those 20 minutes that Danny Dawson had not done anything. Obviously, I could not have done that. As I said, I trusted Officer Foster's word as truth.
No further questions.
Thank you. Is there anybody